There's a moment that happens quietly in people's lives. No celebration, no dramatic breakthrough, no instant proof. Just a strange realization one day that the version of you who used to break under pressure no longer exists. And most people miss that moment completely because they're too busy looking for visible results. But listen carefully. The biggest changes in your life will never begin with evidence. They begin with identity. And whether you realize it or not, your identity has already started changing. Stay with me, because before this ends, you're going to understand why the season you thought was slowing your life down may actually be the exact season that positioned everything differently. And there's one part near the end you need to hear carefully, because it explains why things have felt so emotionally heavy lately. Here's what nobody tells you about transformation. Real change rarely feels empowering while it's happening. Most of the time, it feels confusing. It feels like outgrowing things you can't explain. It feels like becoming emotionally distant from environments you once tolerated. It feels like questioning paths you once chased with certainty. It feels like waking up tired not because you're weak, but because your mind has been carrying too many invisible battles for too long. And during all of this, life outside you may appear almost unchanged. That's the frustrating part, because when external results don't move quickly, the mind immediately assumes nothing is improving. But something is improving. You. The way you respond to disappointment has changed. The way you process uncertainty has changed. The way you survive difficult seasons has changed. A few years ago, this pressure would have completely consumed you. Now, you still feel fear. You still feel uncertainty, but you continue moving anyway. That matters more than you realize. Most people think growth means becoming fearless. It doesn't. Growth is continuing forward while fear is still sitting in the room with you. And that's exactly what you've been doing. Even on the days where you thought you were failing. Even on the mornings where motivation disappeared. Even during the nights where your future felt impossible to picture clearly. You kept going. That changes a person internally long before life reflects it externally. And this next part is important, so don't skip ahead mentally. Because what you're feeling lately is not random. That emotional exhaustion, that strange detachment, that feeling like your old ways of thinking no longer fit you. Those are often signs that your mind is preparing for a different chapter before your physical life catches up to it. People assume breakthroughs arrive with confidence, but many times breakthroughs arrive disguised as uncertainty first. Because before life expands externally, your inner world has to stop operating from survival mode. And survival mode has been exhausting you. Constant overthinking, constant scanning for what could go wrong, constant fear that time is running out, constant pressure to figure everything out immediately. That kind of mental weight changes how you experience life. It makes hope feel dangerous. It makes rest feel irresponsible. It makes uncertainty feel personal. But hear this carefully. Your current circumstances are not permanent evidence of your future. They are temporary conditions. And temporary conditions have fooled many people into giving up right before things started changing. Don't become one of them, because something is happening right now that you cannot fully measure yet. Your perspective is changing, and once perspective changes, decisions change. Once decisions change, behavior changes. Once behavior changes, life begins shifting in directions that once felt impossible. That's how real transformation actually works. Not all at once, not overnight, but gradually enough that you almost don't notice it, until one day your life no longer resembles the version you were struggling to survive inside. And I think part of you already feels this happening. That's why certain things no longer excite you the way they used to. That's why some conversations drain you faster now. That's why forcing yourself into spaces that no longer align with you feels unbearable lately. Your internal standards are changing, and when your standards change, your life eventually follows. But let me tell you something else most people misunderstand. The delay does not always mean denial. Sometimes life waits because your mindset is still learning how to hold what you've been asking for. There's a difference between attracting something and being able to keep it once it arrives. A lot of people pray for opportunity. Very few prepare themselves emotionally for what opportunity demands from them after it appears. Because getting the opportunity is one thing, sustaining it is another, receiving peace is one thing, protecting it is another. Finally, reaching the relationship, the stability, the financial freedom, the healing, the life you've imagined for years, requires a version of you that no longer destroys good things out of fear, panic, insecurity, or exhaustion. And whether you realize it or not, that version of you has been forming quietly underneath this entire difficult season. Not during the easy moments, during the painful ones, during the nights where your mind refused to rest, during the mornings where you had to force yourself to keep functioning, during the moments where you questioned your own future but kept moving anyway. That matters, because pain changes people, but conscious endurance transforms them. And you did endure, even when nobody fully understood what was happening inside you, even when people assumed you were fine because you kept showing up, even when your smile became something you wore more for survival than certainty. You kept going. That is not weakness. That is emotional stamina. And emotional stamina is what creates people who can eventually hold the life they once begged for. Nothing you survived was wasted. Not the disappointment that humbled you. Not the silence that forced you to sit with yourself. Not the delays that made you question your timing. Not the loneliness that revealed who was truly there for you. Not the setbacks that shattered your confidence temporarily. Not the confusion that made you feel emotionally lost. Not the moments where you felt forgotten while watching everyone else move ahead. Every single part of it shaped your capacity, and capacity changes everything. Because when your life finally starts expanding, you won't just need blessings. You'll need the nervous system, the mindset, the emotional maturity, and the inner stability required to carry those blessings without collapsing under them. That's the part most people never talk about. Everyone wants a new life, but a new life often demands a new internal foundation. Otherwise, people arrive at the very thing they prayed for and lose it because they still operate from survival, fear, and self-doubt. That's why this season has felt so emotionally intense. You are not only trying to survive circumstances, you are slowly becoming someone stronger than them. And maybe that process looked unimpressive from the outside. Maybe your life didn't suddenly transform overnight. Maybe there were no dramatic announcements. Maybe nobody clapped for your healing. Maybe nobody noticed how hard you fought just to stay mentally balanced. But invisible growth is still growth. Some of the most important rebuilding happens privately, in silence, in reflection, in isolation, in those deeply personal moments where you almost gave up emotionally, but chose not to. That decision matters more than you know, because every time you chose to continue despite uncertainty, you trained yourself not to abandon your own future. And listen carefully here, because this part is important. Most people do not lose their future physically first. They lose it emotionally. They stop believing meaningful change is possible. They stop expecting life to surprise them positively. They stop investing energy into themselves. They stop imagining a future they actually want to wake up inside of. And slowly, without realizing it, they disconnect from possibility itself. Don't let that happen to you, because there are things unfolding right now that you cannot fully see yet. Certain conversations are getting closer. Certain doors are quietly preparing to open. Certain opportunities are moving toward you without announcement. Certain versions of yourself are developing beneath the surface, while you think nothing is happening. Something is happening, and one day, the evidence of it will become impossible to ignore. But until then, you have to stop measuring your progress only by visible results. Some seasons are not about visible success. Some seasons are about internal reconstruction, and internal reconstruction is slow because it reaches deep. It changes your standards, your boundaries, your self-respect, your tolerance for chaos, your understanding of what you deserve, your relationship with fear, your relationship with yourself. That kind of transformation does not happen in one breakthrough moment. It happens gradually, through repeated moments where life asks you, will you still believe in your future even here? And the fact that you are still here listening to this right now says more about your strength than you've been giving yourself credit for. Actually pause for a second and be honest with yourself. How many times did you almost emotionally check out this year? How many times did life drain you so deeply that continuing felt heavier than quitting? And yet, you're still trying, still hoping, still searching for clarity, still refusing to fully surrender your future to hopelessness. That matters. If you're still here mentally fighting for your life to become better, comment this below. I am allowing. Not for the algorithm, not as motivation, but as proof to yourself that despite everything you carried privately, you are still standing. And that means the story is not over. Now listen carefully to this next part because this may stay with you longer than anything else in this video. You do not need to have your entire future figured out in order for your life to improve dramatically. You only need enough courage to continue participating in your life while clarity is still forming. That's it. You don't need every answer right now. You don't need guarantees. You don't need certainty. before taking the next step. You just need to remain emotionally available to the possibility that life can still become far better than it currently feels. Because the moment people emotionally disconnect from possibility, they stop noticing the doors opening around them. And not everything important arrives loudly. Some of the most life-changing moments begin quietly. A random conversation, an unexpected opportunity, a new perspective, a single decision, one moment of courage, one introduction, one ordinary day that ends up dividing your life into before and after. That's why you cannot judge your entire future based on your current season. This season is temporary, and temporary seasons have convinced many people to abandon themselves right before things started changing. Don't become one of them, because later, when your life finally starts making sense again, you are going to look back at this version of yourself differently. Not with pity, with respect. Because this was the version of you that continued without guarantees. The version that learned how to survive uncertainty. The version that stayed soft without becoming weak. The version that kept rebuilding internally while nobody else could fully see it happening. You were not falling apart. You were rebuilding your foundation in private. And foundations are always built before the visible structure rises. So stop speaking about yourself like someone whose life is permanently stuck. You are not stuck. You are transitioning. You are adjusting internally to a future your current mind cannot fully picture yet. And yes, it feels uncomfortable, because growth often feels like losing your old identity before fully meeting the new one. But that discomfort is not proof that you are failing. Sometimes it is proof that the old version of you can no longer continue into the life waiting ahead. So breathe. You are not behind your life. You are inside the process that is preparing you for it. And one day soon, the things that currently confuse you will connect in ways that leave you speechless. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because you finally realized the season you thought was breaking you was actually building the version of you capable of carrying everything you once prayed for.